ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदादतं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः। श्री श्री Ramakrishna Kathamrita Shrima Kathita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, recorded and told by Sri Mahendranath Gupta, a disciple of the Master. Sri Ramakrishna says, भक्ति लाभ करते गेले निर्जन होवा चाই, মাখন তুলতে গেলে নির্জনে দই পাততে হয়, দইকে নাড়ানাড়ি করলে দই বসে না, তারপর নির্জনে বসে সব কাজ ফেলে দই মন্থন করতে হয়, তবে মাখন তোলা যায়. So the common analogy which everybody understands in the rural setting, Ramakrishna always uses this kind of analogy. He says, as an example of meditation on God and spiritual practices in solitude, the simile of extracting butter from milk. The milk has to be first turned into curd, and the curd has to be churned, and the butter has to be extracted from the churned curd. And in the process of turning the milk into curd, if the milk gets agitated, shaken, then the curd doesn't settle down properly. Exactly in the same way, if there is a tremendous worldly distraction, disturbance at the time of sadhana, then the mind will not settle down on God. After extracting butter from milk, turning the milk into curd, churning it alone in solitude, if that butter is kept in water, then there is no harm. If the milk is mixed with water, then it gets diluted. It gets mixed up. So here the milk is spirituality and the water is the worldliness. If spirituality gets mixed up with worldliness, then the spiritual sadhana gets diluted and higher spiritual experiences become impossible. This is the example Ramakrishna is very fond of giving. First go into solitude, calm your mind, and deeply long for spiritual experiences and higher thoughts. In the Kathopanishad, there is a very important verse in the second chapter, second valli, towards the very end. Na virato duscharitan na shanto na samahita na shanto manaso vapi pragyane nainamapnuyat. It describes negatively who are the people who cannot attain higher spiritual experience. Who are they? Na avirato duscharitan, those who cannot or do not desist from duscharita, wrongdoing, bad conduct. Your conduct should be moral, upright, pure. Those who are impure character, of immoral conduct, they cannot attain to spiritual experience. Now, avirato duscharitan. Duscharita means bad character. A person who does not eliminate, destroy bad character, wickedness in himself, he cannot attain spiritual experience. 1. Na shanta, a person who is not calm in mind. See how step by step he takes you. First, moral conduct. In Yoga Sutra, they call it yama and niyama. Purity, asteya, aparigraha, non-stealing, non-covetousness, not wanting anything from others, ahimsa, non-violence. These are some of the qualities, maybe moral qualities, which are the basis of spiritual experience. Remember that spiritual life has to be built on very, very strong moral foundation. Without morality, purity, moral strength, spirituality is impossible. Very often we think that we can attain to certain spiritual experience, seeing some light and hearing some sound and so on, at the same time leading a loose moral life. No, it's impossible. Morality, purity is the fundamental basis. Without a very strong moral foundation, spirituality is just impossible. This has to be very carefully borne in mind. In the Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali, the first two limbs, the eight-limbed yoga, the first two limbs, the first two anga are yama and niyama. After yama and niyama, you have asana. You sit down calmly, sthira sukham asanam. Whatever posture gives you comfort is asana. Now we have Hatha Yoga, which describes so many different kinds of asanas for one's physical and mental well-being. That's a different kind of science. Unfortunately, when we begin to practice yoga in the modern times, we very often identified yoga with only postures, physical postures, and we identify them with the mere asanas. So finally somebody said, the Ashtanga Yoga, the eight-limbed yoga, has been reduced to Shashtanga Yoga, six-limbed yoga. Yama-niyama are eliminated. Yama-niyama are the moral foundation. So satcharitra is necessary. That means elimination of duscharitra, na virato duscharitat, na ashantaha. The mind has to be calmed. Tranquility of mind, calmness of mind. Very essential. Na virato duscharitan, na ashantaha. Now, mind may be calm, but the mind might not be focused on something higher. See how step by step you are being taken to higher and higher spiritual consciousness. First, observe strict morality. Have a strict moral conduct, purity, truthfulness, selflessness. The Devi Sampat which are spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita, elimination of the Asuri Sampat, demonic qualities, and cultivation of the divine qualities. After calming the mind, you focus it on something higher. Samahita. Ramakrishna often used to tell his own mind, he says, just before he entered the Kali temple for puja, worship and meditation, he used to look at the Bhairava statue at the top of the temple and used to tell his mind, "Oh, my mind, be steady. Focus your mind on the higher consciousness, just like this Bhairava sitting there steadily. Achala, atala, unmoving, strong, without wavering. Yatha deepo nivatasto ningate sopama smrita." The Bhagavad Gita says the mind of a yogi is likened to a flame unflickering in a windless place. There is no wind and the flame is just unflickering flame is just burning in the lamp. Steady. Just like that, the mind has to be steady and focused on something higher. Na samahitaha, a person whose mind is not samahita, mind is not focused on something higher, he will not be able to attain. Na virato duscharitan na shanto na samahitaha na shanta manaso vapi. Even though your mind may be calm and the mind may be focused, there may be a disturbance in the mind because of hankering after the fruits of concentration. This is a very, very subtle point. I have concentrated my mind, I have attained purity, I have observed moral virtues, I am focusing my mind something higher. Why is it that I am not getting the result of my spiritual sadhana? That hankering disturbs you. Nashanta manaso vapi. That's why the Upanishad repeats it again. Nashanto na asamahitaha nashanta manaso vapi. Why is it it is repeated again? Because even though the mind may be focused on something higher, it may become disturbed because the mind is hankering after the fruits of sadhana. You do your sadhana and leave it to God to give you the fruits. Don't be disturbed. This is a fundamental teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of our important causes of suffering. You put the chemicals together and the crystallization will take place by laws of nature, Swami Vivekananda said. You open the window and the breeze will come by itself. All that we need to do is calm your mind, live a pure, moral, virtuous life, and focus your mind on God, and that's it. The rest will be taken care of by the divine. If you are over much worried about why your efforts are not being rewarded, then that worry itself makes your mind disturbed. These people, one, na avirato duscharitan, does not desist from wicked conduct. Na ashanta, mind which is not calm. Na asamahitaha, not focused on something higher, on the divine or God. Na shanta manaso vapi, mind which is not disturbed by hankering of the fruits of meditation. These four kinds of people will not be able to attain the highest. Kathopanishad. Then prajnanena yanamapunayat. So people who are of virtuous conduct, to put it positively, those who are of virtuous conduct, those whose minds are tranquil and calm, those whose minds are focused on something higher, spiritual virtues, verities, God, divine, and those whose minds are not disturbed by hankering after the fruits of sadhana, they shall attain God. They shall attain the supreme realization of the oneness of the Brahman with the Atman. Prajnanena Brahma Atma Aikya Bhavena. Shankara says, Brahmatma Vijnanena. Through the Vijnana, through the science of the oneness of the individual self as the cosmic self. At every point, there is some kind of a disturbance which comes to you. You do your sadhana out of love of God, not because you want something from God. This is one great secret of spiritual life. If you want something from God, you shall get it, because God is the Kalpataru, the wish fulfilling tree is the Kamadhenu. You shall receive what you really want from God. But that will be very small. The infinite and the absolute can give you the infinite and the absolute. So rather than wanting something from God, you want God Himself. That's the difference. Not something from Him, but I want Him. I have no desire except realizing Him in totality. Oh Lord, I don't want anything. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye, mama janmani janmani shvare bhavatat bhakti rahetu ki tvai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikshashtakam, he says, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. O Lord, the beloved of my soul, I do not want wealth, worldly prosperity. I don't want a huge following whom I'll be able to control. I don't want beautiful damsels to enjoy. I don't want the fame as a great scholar. All that I want, I crave for, is unqualified, pure bhakti or love for your lotus feet. Janma after janma, birth after birth. Nastha dharme navasunachaye naiva kamopabhoge yadyad prarthyam yadyad bhavyam bhavatu bhagavan purvakarmanurupam etad prarthyam mama bahumatam janma janmantarepi tvatpadamboruhayugagata nischala bhaktirastu. Mukundamala Stotram by Kulashekara. The great Bhakti Acharyas repeatedly mentioned this. Swami Ramakrishna-Ananda, one of the greatest Jnanis and Bhaktas of modern times, one of the illustrious sannyas and disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, used to constantly repeat this verse. Nastha dharme, na astha dharme. I am not worried about dharma or adharma. Na vasu nichaye. Wealth in this world. Naiva kamo upabhoge, kama upabhoga. Enjoyment of the senses. Yadyad bhavyam bhavatu bhagavan purvakarma anurupam. Let anything happen to me because of purva karma. My earlier karma and the janmas, they will give me what I really deserve. Let it take care of itself. What do I want? Etad prarthyam. The only one prayer, O Lord, I have. Janma janmantarepi. In birth after birth, janma after janma, tvat padamboruhayogagata nischala bhaktirastu. Let me have nischala bhakti, unwavering devotion, bhakti, to your blessed feet. If your mind is disturbed and you are not focused to something higher, and you have no faith in the divine, you will constantly suffer. That's what it says here. আবার দেখো, এই মনে নির্জনে ঈশ্বর চিন্তা করলে জ্ঞান বৈরাগ্য ভক্তি লাভ হয়, কিন্তু সংসারে ফেলে রাখলে ওই মন নিচে হয়ে যায়। সংসারে কেবল কামনে কাঞ্চনের চিন্তা। সংসার জল আর মনটি যেন দুধ। যদি জলে ফেলে রাখে তাহলে দুধে জলে মিশে এক হয়ে যায়। খাঁটি দুধ খুঁজে পাওয়া যায় না। দুধকে দুই পেতে মাখন তুলে যদি জলে রাখা যায় তাহলে ভাসে। তাই নির্জনে সাধনা দ্বারা আগে জ্ঞান ভক্তিরূপ মাখন লাভ করবে। সেই মাখন সংসার জলে ফেলে রাখলেও মিশবে না, ভেসে থাকবে। The simple, beautiful example, if you mix spirituality of pure milk with the water of worldliness, then the milk gets diluted and pure spirituality is absent. But if you extract butter from milk, after turning it into curd and churning it, this churning is sadhana. The heart has to be churned. So much of dirt, so much of worldliness is there in the heart. Churn it, churn it, churn it. Let them all come out, one by one, one by one. Reject all of them, and ultimately the greatest terrible poison, as in the case of the churning of the Samudra Manthana, the milk ocean, that will be gobbled up by Mahashiva, Sadashiva. He becomes Nilakantha. After that comes the wonderful Amrita. This is symbolic, allegorical significance. The unconscious has to be churned. Unconscious is the repository of innumerable samskaras. So many thousands of janmas, so many samskaras are lurking in your mind. Churn them, and bring out this Amrita, the nectar of spirituality, for which solitude and calmness are required. What happens then? নির্জনে ঈশ্বর চিন্তা করলে জ্ঞান বৈরাগ্য ভক্তি লাভ হয়। Look at each word. Jnana, vairagya, bhakti. Jnana is knowledge. Knowledge of what? Initially it is the knowledge of the real as against, as contradistinguished from the unreal. Nitya, anitya, viveka jnana. Discern between the real and the unreal, the eternal and the non-eternal, between the evanescent and the ephemeral, and that which is permanent and eternal. Ultimately, the realization of the supreme truth is the jnana. Atma Brahma Aikya Jnana is what Shankara calls as jnana. Your spiritual entity, realizing oneself as a spirit rather than the body, is a jnana. And realizing oneself as a spiritual entity, then realizing oneself as one with the ultimate spirituality, which is Brahman, is the highest jnana. Atma Brahma Aikya Jnana, a realization of the identity or oneness of the Atman and Brahman. The Atman is the individual spiritual consciousness. Brahman is the supreme universal spiritual consciousness. Jnana, Vairagya, Bhakti. Look at the sequence. You need Vairagya to be able to retain that Jnana. Why Vairagya is necessary? This Jnana may come to you in flashes, but you lose it because of lack of Vairagya. Vairagya is that tremendous power of mind by which you are able to reject that which is unreal and take up what is real. There are two important qualities in spiritual life. One is Viveka, other is Vairagya. These two are the fundamental basis of spiritual life. Spiritual life is built upon the bedrock of Viveka Vairagya. Viveka is the discernment between the real and the unreal. Nitya, Anitya, Vastu, Viveka. Now, after having a knowledge of what is real, as contradistinguished from what is unreal, the capacity to be able to hold on to the real and reject completely, totally, absolutely that which is unreal and ephemeral, this power is called Vairagya. Vairagya is not negative. Vairagya is that positive quality of holding on to your conviction. I am convinced that God alone is real. I am convinced God can be realized in this very life. I am convinced that the realization of God is possible, and the aim of human life is to realize Him. And I am convinced that a life of a human being spent without the realization of God, the realization of the highest spiritual truth, is in vain and absolutely useless. This conviction, if it comes to me, even intellectually convinced, if I am convinced, holding on to this conviction, even if it cut to pieces, you will not move away from your conviction. Holding on to this conviction and raising yourself to higher and higher spiritual consciousness. At any cost, at any time, in any place, in any circumstance, sarvada sarvatha, I hold on to the conviction and the truth that God alone is real and all else is illusory. Ishvari vastu or shob avastu. How many 100,000 times Sri Ramakrishna repeats this sentence in the Gospel of Ramakrishna in the Kathamrita. But am I convinced about it? I believe in this. But am I convinced? Why is it that we are suffering, we are not getting spiritual experience? Because we have faith, we have some jnana, viveka jnana, but immediately after jnana, Ramakrishna put vairagya. Here he will mean jnana, the viveka jnana, the conviction that God exists, He can be realized. Realization of God is the aim of human life. And He is the absolute truth to be realized in this life. This knowledge comes to you through listening to the Acharya, the Guru, studying the scriptures, manana, reflection, nididhyasana, deep contemplative absorption. But the capacity to be able to hold on to this conviction to the complete exclusion of anything else is vairagya. Temptations will come. the mind will again and again waver. The old samskaras and tendencies will assert, and you may be hijacked by the turbulent senses into worldly temptations. At every point you stand like a rock and say no. In one word, the capacity to be able to say no to worldly temptations and the mind's waverings, and make it a positive, clear, unwavering no. No means no, it can't happen. I will not allow this to happen. Ordinarily, in our case, we have some viveka jnana, or else you will not be here listening to me and I will not be here talking to you about the gospel of Ramakrishna. We have some knowledge. We have some viveka. We have some conviction that the spiritual truths are real and have to be realized. But we cannot live by our convictions at any cost. The capacity to be able to hold on, the toughness of the mind, vairagya. Nitya anitya vastu viveka ihamutra phala bhoga viragaha. Vairagya is bhoga viraga, the utter dispassion for the prizes, the little prizes of this world and the next world. Iha amutra phalabhoga. Iha means in this world, amutra in the afterlife. The ancient believed that after you pass away, you will go to Swarga or somewhere and enjoy, which is quite logical because the enjoyments which you could not have here, you may feel like having it elsewhere. You may go to various places. You may go to advanced countries where enjoyments are available so easily. All kinds of sophisticated enjoyments are available. Complete dispassion. This is called vairagya. Combined with jnana and vairagya, bhakti is the positive love for God. Vairagya is in a sense a negative quality. Dispassion. You don't want anything. You don't want worldly enjoyments. You reject them. You eliminate them. You have the capacity, the power to say no to the lower mind. Then you are drawn to something higher. So Sri Ramakrishna will say, Vishaye virag, Ishvare anurag. You have dispassion for the Vishaya, for worldliness, and you have deep love for God, Ishvare anurag, love for God. So he says, what is the result of solitude and sadhana done solitarily? Nirjane ei mone chinta korile জ্ঞান বৈরাগ্য ভক্তি লাভ হয়, কিন্তু সংসারে ফেলে রাখলে ওই মন নিচে হয়ে যায়, নীচ হয়ে যায়। সংসারে কেবল কামনি কাঞ্চনের চিন্তা। Worldly enjoyments, sense enjoyments, sensual enjoyments, and kanchana, greed, money. Lust and greed are the only two things which constantly occupy the mind of a worldly person. সঙ্গে সঙ্গে বিচার করা খুব দরকার। কামিনী কাঞ্চন অনিত্য, ঈশ্বরই একমাত্র বস্তু। How many hundred times Ramakrishna has repeated this for our sake? This is called Shravana. Listen to this repeatedly, again and again. There are three great obstacles to the realization of Vedanta, of the highest truth. One is Samshaya Bhavana, second is Asambhavana, the third is Viparita Bhavana. Samshaya Bhavana is doubt. Is it so? Can God be realized? Is there something called God? Is there something higher in spiritual life? So constantly doubting the spiritual truths, which comes to the mind sometimes. I struggled so much, I meditated so much, I tried so much, but I could not achieve anything. So, is there something called God? You doubt. This is called samshaya. Samshaya is a rakshasa. Samshaya is a terrible demon which devours you. That's why Swami Vivekananda talked about his guru in a great hymn, Stotra. Samshaya rakshasa nashamahastram yami gurum sharanam bhava vaidyam. Samshaya rakshasa nashamahastram. He is a great weapon for destruction of the samshaya. Samshayatma vinashyati. Bhagavan says, Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, a person who is assailed by doubt, vinashyati, he gets destroyed. Samshayatma vinashyati. How can the samshaya be removed? By Shravana. What does it mean? Constantly listen to the discourses of great men, those who have realized God. For example, we are reading the Gospel of Ramakrishna, and the Word of God. A person who is absorbed in God, immersed in God, soaked in God, realized God in all the aspects. When he speaks with power and authenticity, it has to be true. When you constantly listen to the scriptures, to the acharyas, Shastra, scripture, and the acharyas, the guru, the teachers, when you listen, then conviction comes to you. Doubt is removed by conviction, not mere faith or belief, by deep conviction. That's called Shraddha. Shastrasya Guruvakyeshu Satyabuddhyavadharanam. The Viveka Chudamani, Shankara says, Satyabuddhi. The conviction of truths about this, that it is true, comes to you by Shravana. Shraddha, deep conviction comes to you. Yes, it is true. I may not be able to realize it at this moment. I am weak. My senses are giving me so much of trouble. My previous samskaras are terrible. I may not be able to realize this truth now, but this is the truth. Even if you cut me to pieces, I will still assert that God is true, He can be realized. There is no doubt about it. At the moment, I'm weak, I'm walking in slow pace, but it is possible to realize it. This conviction comes to you through Sravana, listening with great Shraddha. The second obstacle after samshaya, doubt, is asambhavana. Asambhavana is the feeling that it is impossible for me. I know realization of God is the only aim of human life. I know God is the only truth to be realized. I am convinced that it is the highest purpose of human existence, but it is impossible for me. I tried and tried for years and years. My mind and my body are not equipped to realize this truth, so I give up. I see the mountain peak. I know I have to reach there. My path is very clear. My goal is luminously seen, but I do not have the strength to walk. After some time, several years of struggle, I almost am inclined to give up. Oh, it is not possible for me to walk anymore. These things come to a spiritual sadhaka. Swami Vivekananda, when he was a parivrajak, peripatetic monk moving around, once he was so tired, he did not have sleep, did not have any food or drink. He was walking and walking, and he was almost collapsing. I can't walk anymore. Then an old monk, he said, why are you feeling despondent? Come, see back. All this road, all these paths, you have crossed all that. They are now under your feet. A little more, go. Then tremendous new enthusiasm he started. So asambhavana is the impossibility of your mind and body acquiring the supreme spiritual realization. You suddenly feel, I am not equal to that. I cannot do that anymore. I cannot walk anymore. This came to Arjuna. Arjuna said, no, I can't do it anymore. Sidanti mama gatrani tvakchaiva paridakhyate naja shukrum vyavasthatam bhramati vachame manaha. Look at the description. The first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Oh Lord, I can't walk anymore. I can't even stand straight. My whole body is burning. My senses have become so weak. I can't hold even the weapon, the Gandiva, the bow. Gandivam shamsade hastat tvakchaiva paridakhyate. My whole skin is burning as it were. I am becoming completely weak. Karpanya dosho apahata svabhava prachhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. Mentally I have become completely weak and smashed. I have lost all strength. Then Sri Krishna whipped him up and said, Klaibyam masmagamah partha naitatpai upapadyate kshudram hridayadaurbullyam taktvottishta parantapa. O Arjuna, yield not to unmanliness, Klaibyam. Ill does it befit thee. You are a great warrior. It does not become you. You are a Senapati. You are an army general. Kshudram hridayadaurbullyam. Give up this mean faint-heartedness. Tektva uttishta. Come on. Get up. Walk. Parantapa, you are the scorcher of enemies. Again, with tremendous enthusiasm, he started walking. Asambhavana is removed by manana. Reflection of on what you have heard. You listen to the teacher, you listen to the scriptures, you listen to discourses, your doubt goes away and you are convinced about the truth. After being convinced about the truth, reflect. Simply listening will not do. You listen again and again, then you go back, close your eyes, go deep into yourself, meditate, contemplate on what you have listened, manana, reflect. Allow those ideas to sink deep into your consciousness. It's called manana. Asambhavana, obstacle is removed through manana. Then even then, there is a third obstacle called viparita bhavana. I may be convinced about it, my doubts have gone away, and my weakness that I shall not be able to attain it, that has been removed. I have become strong. I am now convinced and strong that I can attain this. Asambhavana has been removed. Then, in actual life, I behave as if I am weak, as if I have not realized, as if I am not a spiritual person at all. You spoke so beautifully. You did so much. You struggled with sadhana. But why is it that you are behaving this way? Your actual behavior in daily life betrays you. There is a mismatch between what you speak, what you profess, and what you actually do in life. This happens to all of us. Tremendous mismatch. You talk about it so beautifully, and you so convincingly can enunciate this, but your daily life doesn't match. Viparita bhavana, contrast of what you are convinced about and the strength which you manifest in realization of that conviction and your daily conduct. Viparita. This viparita bhavana is removed by nididhyasana. Not only manana or reflection, but after reflection, you listen, shravana, then you reflect very deeply, then meditate, contemplate, go deep into your own convictions, and let the ideas not merely remain at the mental or the intellectual level. Let them go deep into your consciousness and transform your being, coursing through your veins, and your whole nervous system gets charged. What Swami Vivekananda called education is a nervous association of certain ideas. Ideas no longer remain as ideas, but our whole consciousness becomes saturated with the idea that you unconsciously become that idea. This happened to Sri Ramakrishna. That he shall not touch a metal or a coin was an idea. But that idea never remained as an idea, even unconsciously, even without his knowing. If he happened to remotely touch a coin, his entire body was reacting in such a way that the metal was thrown out. It happened to Swami Vivekananda. Towards the end of his life, when he was extremely ill, he was in the treatment of a Kaviraja, an Ayurvedic physician, who told him, please don't drink water. Some pomegranate juice you should take. Swami just said, how is it possible? It is so hot, I drink so much of water. Sir, please don't do that. Swami just said, do you really mean it? Yes. Then Swami just said, I shall not drink water, as you say. And forgot about it. Next day, when he was rinsing his mouth, a few particles of water was entering his mouth, his gullet, and the muscles here contracted and twisted in such a way the waters were simply thrown out. Swami was surprised. Why is it happening like this to me? Then he remembered, I resolved I shall not drink water. So that idea was not a mere mental thought or intellectual conviction. That became part of his nervous system and the muscular system. And even unconsciously, the particles of water simply thrown out. Can you imagine these things happening? It is possible. Your body, your mind, your senses will be completely under your control. I tell the mind and the body, you shall do this, it shall do it. I tell the mind and the body and the senses, you shall not do this, and it shall not do it. That is complete, total self-control. It is possible to take an idea and make it sink deep into your unconscious mind, so that your entire body, mind and consciousness are saturated with this idea. This is called nididhyasana. So Shravana, Manana and nididhyasana respectively remove the three obstacles to the realization of truth, namely samshaya bhavana, asambhavana, viparita bhavana. The doubt, then the feeling of impossibility, and your actions not matching your convictions. It is possible to do this. These have been experimented with, practiced, discussed, documented for hundreds of thousands of years by thousands of spiritual men in India. And the latest documentation which we are reading now, this great book, Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita. He says, therefore, বিচার করা দরকার, বস্তু বিচার, you reflect deeply. ঈশ্বরই একমাত্র বস্তু, আর সব অবস্তু। টাকায় কি হয়? ভাত হয়, ডাল হয়, কাপড় হয়, থাকবার জায়গা হয়, এই পর্যন্ত। ভগবান লাভ হয় না, তাই টাকা জীবনের উদ্দেশ্য হতে পারে না। এর নাম বিচার, বুঝেছ? So we think Ramakrishna always spoke only about bhakti, devotion and singing and dancing. How rational he was, how extremely Vedantic. He said Vastu Vichar, bhakti, prarthana, prayer to God, devotion, and along with that, clear, incisive vichar. Vichar means reflection. Constantly analyze, not through the mind. It is not analysis through the intellect or the mind, but your conviction about the highest truth brought to bear upon your daily life. Your whole life should be affected deeply by your convictions. You can't make the smallest mistake with regard to your convictions, because your whole mind and body and personality and the senses, your muscles, your bones, your nervous system are tinged and saturated by that idea that you just can't do anything else except live by your convictions. It is possible. This is the great courage which you get when you read the Kathamrita. Sri Ramakrishna repeatedly says, Ishwariya vastu, Arshava vastu, vichar karo. This is the vastu vichar. What do you get by all this? What do you get by money? The economic slowdown. Everywhere the whole world is now crying. India is crying. How to revive the economy? Ultimately, you don't get anything in this world, but what you really need is the higher conviction. If you are based upon truth, you shall never be moved from there. Yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunabhi vichalyate. The Bhagavan says in the Gita, being rooted and steadily established in which supreme truth, even the greatest misery shall not move you. It is possible by studying this, which is called Shravana, which we did so far. Reflect upon this deeply, and through constant, continuous reflection, Dirghakala Nirantaryena Satkara Sevita Dridabhumihi. The Yoga Sutra says, Dirghakala Nirantaryena, long time, continuously without any gap. If you get established in this, then conviction becomes deeper and deeper, and the truth shall flash soon, palpably, tangibly, luminously. This is a great lesson which we'll learn from this extraordinary modern scripture called the Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukampathita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namamaha. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.